Hi everyone. I wanted to do a little bit of a walkthrough for this platform. It's a little bit different than most you see because it has a center aisle, has a tailgate, and it's kind of similar to the 4Runner one I did a few years ago, but this one's a little bit more elaborate because I built it at my house and had more time, where the other one I built at my friend's house and only had basically a day or so to build it. So this is kind of what's going on here. Kind of some of the differences is in my 4Runner it was a more narrow, smaller vehicle in general. So I divided the platform in 3 sections. So it was 16 inches per section. The middle aisle was 16 inches. And that worked great. One of the downsides is I had to put away my bed every day. And I kind of saw the upside of being able to keep my bed set up because it's just one less thing to do. And so this is 2 feet, and now I can have my bed set up the whole time. And then I have the center aisle. The center aisle, the reason I did that is I can take my bike, take the front tire off and put it in here if I'm ever in a city or anywhere I want to walk around and not worry about theft. I can also put dirty stuff down in the aisle. It's not in my platform, getting stuff dirty. I also put my water jug. I usually have a box of food, maybe a backpack that I keep in the aisle. And when I'm driving down the road through windy roads or bumpy dirt roads or whatever, everything stays in place, which is a huge upside, so things aren't sliding around. I do have this leaf I put on the side, and so this fills in. So I do have I have these little cleats, and that supports it, and then there's a little ledge in the front there, and so that supports it. So now I can set up 2 mattresses if I want and have 2 people sleep in here. And so it does have a bit of options. And then on my other platform, this used to go here and I could clamp it down. But since this doesn't have that clamping ability because it's different, what I do is it normally just rides right there, and my water jug and everything keeps it in place, and it doesn't really rattle or anything. I really don't like rattles, so maybe every once in a while I'll hear a little something, but really it hasn't been an issue at all. And then kind of when I'm sleeping, it provides kind of a little wall, so it's kind of been not really an issue. So a couple things that are different about this build, significantly different than anyone else's, is I have a tailgate. And the tailgate is an invention I made. It's been working great. I'm on about my 4th month of traveling every day. I do a couple trips a year. So I did 2 months in Mexico with it, everyday camping. I did one last fall, and now I'm doing one this spring. I'm in Arizona right now. And I've had 2 people sit on it. I wouldn't recommend bouncing up and down or jumping on it like a regular truck tailgate. I really don't know where its breaking point is, but I've had 2 men sit on it, and it didn't fall apart yet. So I guess just time will tell how it holds up long term. At the end of the video, I'm gonna do kind of a more in-depth look at this and show you how I constructed it, and maybe you want to do something similar or you can see a way to improve it. But the tailgate out of the whole system is the biggest improvement, hands down. I'm not up against my dusty bumper. I have a place to sit, I have a place to cook, just so many wonderful things. I can put my water jug on it and wash my hands. So getting into the other things about the platform is I have a drawer. It's pretty standard. It's about 4 inches deep and just has all my kitchen cooking related things. So the reason I built the Sequoia is because I had a customer who was selling it and I really couldn't pass up on it. It was just too good of a deal. And so I had it for a while, and I was going back and forth if I wanted to ship it to the mainland and convert it into my new travel vehicle, because the 4Runner was really making me happy. in every way. But I was going for my 3rd trip to Mexico, and we're going to be there for 2 months, and I was finding myself doing longer and longer trips, and the ice started becoming a factor. I did it for, you know, about 9 years, and it wasn't so much the cost of the ice or the lack of room in the cooler due to the ice taking up so much room, but what I found is often we would have to leave camp to go get ice, and sometimes you drive an hour or an hour and a half, or maybe even half an hour, just depending, to go get ice. And then by the time you get ice, you're like, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to go back? And you're like, no, because you might have driven an hour or more just to get the ice. So it was more the inconvenience and the gas of getting the ice that seemed to justify me going towards a fridge. And I just couldn't figure out a way to put the fridge in the 4Runner. There was just no extra room. The 3rd gen 4Runner is really small, and the Sequoia had 50% more room. So that's kind of what pushed me over the edge to doing this Sequoia build. So that's kind of what got me into it. And back to the build. So since I built it in Hawaii, I didn't have all my stuff to measure off of. So I kind of just guessed certain things. And for example, I did know the size of my clothes because I could fold my clothes and figure it out. So I made these cubbies to fit like folded shirts and folded shorts and socks and whatnot. And so when I finally got to the mainland with the vehicle and I was basically figuring out where everything went, I put all my clothes in here, and it just didn't make sense. No matter what I did, it just couldn't work. And so, you know, when you build stuff, you kind of just got to keep working at it until you figure out a system. I'm still moving stuff around, and I think that's probably just how it goes. But for example, one thing that I got super lucky on, and this wasn't planned at all, is this is my little cook pot, and here's my fuel, and it fits in there with like maybe a 1/4 inch extra. I mean, it's just sometimes you get lucky, and it's just so, and it's just flush right up to the tailgate. So sometimes you get lucky. Over here, one other thing we're talking about is I did cut the whole side of my interior panel apart so I could get a little bit extra room and build this shelving unit. It used to look like this side, where it had cup holders and a little cubby and whatnot, but I wanted to build something a little more substantial. So I cut this out, and it did give me a pretty deep storage back here. So I just have, you know, all kinds of, I got oil and car stuff and a bunch of soaps and, you know, just miscellaneous stuff. I also, since you're probably looking at it, out in the desert, sometimes I run across old homesteads and I'll find old dowels that are from like chairs and stuff, and I'll paint them when I'm sitting around at camp. And then every once in a while, I'll run across someone and just give it to them. So that's kind of what those are all about. So getting into here, you can kind of look at what's going on. So it is really nice having a shelf when I'm at camp. I do put stuff up here that I use a lot, so that has been really a good thing. These little cubbies, they just hold miscellaneous stuff. This is basically paper goods. This got jumper cables and a tripod and a mattress pump and a book. This one has chest and backgammon and an air pump. These are also, I was really just having a hard time organizing. So what I did is I went to the Goodwill and I bought these little makeup bags, or I don't know what they are. They're probably makeup bags. They're like $2 or $1, and you know, you can just put whatever you want and keep it organized. So this is all my cords for charging everything, and now I know where to grab them. It's in a bright bag. It's super easy. I got one of these lights. It does white, but it also does all the colors. This has been pretty nice. So just some stuff like that. One thing I don't like about these cubbies is I can never seem to like really organize them or just fill them up and in a good way. and it's kind of frustrating. So I don't know. I really don't know what I would do different. Maybe do some doors, and then you could just cram stuff in there and slam it closed. But then at least you can maximize all this room, which I don't know. Maybe over time I'll figure it out. But right now it's just kind of a little funky. But it's storage, and the shelf is kind of nice, and I do have a place to put stuff, so I'm not complaining. It just feels like it could be better. Down in here, I have this is like bike stuff, and I have a bunch of lights and whatnot. This is art supplies, mostly a bunch of paints. And right here, this is tools. For example, this is another little bag that I got. I think it's from a casino or something, but you know, it's got all my tools in it. So these little bags are pretty awesome. And I always put my screwdrivers on top and outside of the bag. I don't think they fit anyway, but I seem to need screwdrivers more than anything, so I can just reach in and grab them. Let's see. Moving on over here. So under here is my drawer with all my kitchen stuff. And so I did want to have access to it, you know, if it was raining or something and I didn't want to open the tailgate. So I do kind of have, I've never done it. But if you notice down here, because the drawer has to clear, there's a couple inch gap so that I couldn't make the drawer deeper. And that was one of the downsides of the tailgate. Pretty much the only downside is I did lose a little bit of capacity and storage. But what I did do is I keep maps and a couple books, and I just kind of have these little bungees to hold them down so the drawer doesn't hang up on them. And so they just go over. So I guess one other nice thing about this door is, you know how sometimes drawers get stuck because something jams them? I guess I can always get in here and kind of unjam it if that ever happens. So I guess that's a perk. Another thing worth mentioning is these little latches. They sit really flush. They're made for boats. They work great, but they were a real pain to put in because I think they're made for fiberglass or something, like a real thin, not plywood. So I had to modify quite a bit of stuff to get them to work. And then getting these little latches in, like, yeah, here's a great example. So I don't know if you can see, but I actually had to cut a slot in the middle of this wood and glue it and screw it in the middle of the plywood. So it'd be the perfect depth to get this latch. And talk about time consuming, you know, all these little things that you just think you're gonna put in a latch, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that is a time warp. So if you do get these little flush latches, just beware that you're gonna be doing some problem solving if they're not made for the thickness of a plywood. Also, you know, I just put a couple little ledgers to support the door. And I did put a little bit of foil tape on the corners because they did feel a little bit sharp, even though I kind of filed them to take off the sharpness. But I was just a little concerned for my sleeping pad that it might just, you know, be abrasive and create a hole. So they don't look the best, but I'd rather have that than a hole. And another thing is these piano hinges are great if you do it on a flat surface. That's the only time they're great. Other than that, they're, once again, very time consuming. And it's just the way they hinge, which, you know, is pretty standard. But I did some doors over here, and I wasn't really thinking about it. I hadn't really done this before. So things just got really time consuming. So if you see here, I had to notch around this, so when this one opens, it you know, they maybe if I show you here, they'd have room for the door to swing. And so, you know, and then I had to notch around this thing. So it just gets time consuming. You know, it's not impossible, but it's things you don't really think about. And then, for example, on this one, where I showed you already, there's a piano hinge here. And when you swing it up, everything is great. But then these little parts, as they swing down, hit the plywood, the dividers. So I guess I could have made the dividers a little short, but I didn't know. And so, you know, I just kind of built it and just kept going. And as problems would arise, I would kind of just problem solve, because it was already basically installed in the vehicle and I couldn't just take out the platform again. So, you know, these are helpful hints. Either make your divider shorter, which, yeah, that would save a lot of time. So that's kind of that. And what else we got in here? This is another compartment, and this is just kind of my cellar. It has a ton of stuff I probably don't even need, to be honest. I mean, I have enough stuff to travel for 2 people, so I have double the bedding, double the mattresses, double. You know, I got extra towels and just so much stuff that is constantly giving me mental grief, because I'm constantly trying to organize and create better flow. So that's kind of what's going on with that bin. And I really never get into it because it's just kind of stuff I don't use for the most part. This is my electrical box. So when you build a fridge, and one of the reasons I didn't get a fridge for a long time, in addition to space issues, is the electrical system. So I was real apprehensive to do it because they take up so much room and they're expensive. But anyway, here's a couple air vents, because it is just a box. I have an air vent in the front with a fan that goes on at 105 degrees. It cuts on, and to help push hot air out of the battery box. So this is kind of how it is. It's really Tetrised in there. But luckily my friend Joe is a wizard. He does high-end residential electrical systems, and I was gonna do it way simpler, and I'm really glad he got involved and told me, no, we're gonna do it right. We're gonna do it safe. And he said words that I never heard before. So like he said shunt, and I'm like, I don't even know what a shunt is, but yeah, so we just did this in an afternoon, got it all in there, and it's an SOK lithium phosphate battery, and there's a little fan, there's a little vented door, and yep, it's got all the fuse breakers. Mostly I charge it off of my alternator, 30 amps. And I did have a solar panel I was gonna install on the roof, but I just couldn't fit it up there, to be honest, once I had my rooftop box. So in Mexico, I borrowed a fold-out solar system, because we were parked for a week at a time, and that worked really good. 100 watts kept my whole system going. But on this trip, I'm in Arizona right now, and I drive pretty much every day, so my alternator is more than enough. This is kind of a funny little grabby thing I had. I just went through my box of junk, and it's an old door strike, and I smashed it flat. And it's basically just what I grabbed to lift it open. And then this is a pretty cool little catch that I had from something, I don't even know where. But it's a little brass, and it's got 2 ball bearings with springs on them. And it latches into this thing, and you can adjust the tension of how strong you want it to be. So that just kind of sits there. Here's, boy, that's super bright for you guys. Here's my little meter. So I'm at 88.6 after being here about 12 hours. And I have one little USB charger. My friend who helped me build it had another USB for me, and I said, no, one's enough. Nope, one isn't enough, and I need to get another one. So I should have listened to him. I did put a couple rings here, so if I ever need to tie it on my bike or something more substantial, I have something to lash something down with. These are the front cubbies. This one's kind of funny because it's angled. But yeah, once again, I got a little bag. You know, it's got smiley clouds and rainbows and stars. How can you go wrong? This is all my toiletries. And I got another one that's just like my shaving, all my shaving stuff. These little bags are really good. I highly recommend going to Goodwill or buying whatever you want. This is basically first aid and stuff like that. So that's kind of what's going on here. Here's the cords for a solar panel if I ever need. This is all my clothes, and I got this bag at a garage sale, and it's a Lamborghini bag, so it's the fastest bag ever. And another thing I did is I wrapped my whole floor with this, I'll show you on the other side because it came off a little bit, but this is industrial, like a commercial grade greenhouse material, and I just coated the whole bottom. I took out the seats and everything, so the whole underneath is all this, so it doesn't matter if it's a bit muddy or dusty, I can just wipe everything. And it's just kind of a preventative measure to keep things clean. And yeah, so even though I complain about space, I did manage to fit this tiny little Pioneer subwoofer, which I just happened upon. So I know it's contradictory for sure. I got no space, but I have a little subwoofer. Okay, so coming on over here, at the fridge, it's an Isoco. Works great. No complaints at all. Everything's good with that. Coming down here, I always carry like 2-gallon jugs. They're a little bit less than a gallon. And those just seem to be handy to have when I'm moving through my day. So rather than getting out the big jug. Then I got a little bit of laundry detergent. I got, let me see if I can get in there, a little cubby back in here. It's like a little shelf with some little walls. And then I just have this cardboard box, and it just has basically all my food. And cardboard boxes are really great. They don't cost anything. They're super light, and you can kind of make them to the size you need. This one just fit. So this is the material. It's white on one side, black on the other. Typically, these are used for storage buildings that are on like greenhouse frames. And so you put the white towards the sky and the black down, but it's got a reinforcing nylon string in it, so it's super strong, like ripstop basically. And so here's basically how the vehicle looks. And then I have this PVC pipe up here. So when I travel to Mexico, I'm typically with my friend with his Land Cruiser. He's got a PVC pipe on his racks as well. And what we do is we have some stretchy, kind of spandexy material. It's for shade cloth. It's dark blue. And we have paracord tied to the corners, and we stretch it between our vehicles. So it's about 12 feet wide and maybe, I don't know, 6-7 feet deep. And so that's our shade structure the whole time we're down there. And so it just spans between our vehicles. We can open and close our doors, and it's extremely wind tolerant. It doesn't flap or make, it does flap, but it doesn't make noise like plastic and stuff. So it's really quiet. And so that's kind of what the PVC is for. When I'm by myself, I'm really lonely and it doesn't work at all. So I'm trying to, every once in a while I think about trying to make some legs, but it's really not too much of a concern for me. Up here, these boxes are amazing. If you've never had one of them, I can't say enough. Basically more bedding. It's kind of a mess because I just threw some stuff up here for the video. But you know, it's got chairs. bedding, stuff for mountain biking, extra shoes, backpacks, on and on. Dirty clothes. But that box I bought used like 10 years ago. It's been down literally thousands of miles of bad dirt roads, and it's never failed me. And if it ever falls off, I will not blame it and buy another one instantly. I couldn't do it without it because it provides me so much extra storage. And yeah, it's definitely worth having. And they're super aerodynamic, they're quiet, and even dust really doesn't get in there. It's really impressive. So let's get back to this tailgate here. So one of the cool things about having SUV with a big door is I basically have an awning. So it provides me, you know, a lot of shade protection over my tailgate. So it's kind of like I got the best of both worlds. I got the big door and a tailgate, where like the Land Cruiser just has a little half door up top. And another thing that I did in Mexico is in the morning, because we were facing the ocean reversed, like the back of the truck was facing the ocean, is I would come up here and I have these little clamps. Maybe I can find one. Oh yeah, these. Have these little clamps from Home Depot. And what I would do is I'd get like a towel or something, and I would just clamp it to this edge. And it would provide me enough shade, because we were kind of facing east towards the ocean, and I would sit on my tailgate because the sun was angling into our awning thing between our vehicles. And I could sit on my tailgate and have coffee and cereal and watch the people surf and still be in the shade. And then, you know, maybe about 8 or 9 o'clock, I would transition over to our regular awning because it got high enough in the sky. But having that little option was pretty great, where my friend with his Land Cruiser didn't. So to the tailgate here. So starting with the surface, it's, I don't know, maybe corian or something. I had some countertop material laying around forever that I got in an auction years ago. And so it's, I don't know, maybe 1/2 inch thick. And so I cut this to dimension, routed the edge, drilled some holes and screwed it down with glue. And it's easy to clean. And yeah, it was great. Just something I had laying around. So let's get into the bottom here. So how I started this is I kind of looked at I got a Tacoma. I looked at how their hinges work, and they kind of have a socket over here where it just pivots. And so I was like, maybe I can use PVC pipe. So that's what this is. I don't know, 1.5 inches maybe. And so it's, it just has bolts going through the PVC, and I had to space it because it's got a swivel over these brackets. So there's just a tiny gap, maybe like a 1/16. So I put a nut in there. And then this is a 2x2, just regular lumber. A 2x2, a 2x4, and a 2x2. And I screwed and glued them together. At one point I had these little like, they're like U-shaped nails. I can't think of the word right now. But I had cable going through the whole system, and cable was what was gonna hold it up. But I ended up changing on that. So basically these are, I think they're made for top rail on fences. And it just allows a swivel. So basically that is my hinge, is that pipe. It does groan a little bit, but that's just kind of plastic making a sound. And then when you put pressure, it kind of creaks a little, but that's just the plastic again. So these are those same brackets. I just bolted them to the bottom of my platform. I did cut this one flush where these ones stick up a bit, but they're out of the way, so I don't care. And let's see. So I used to have a cable coming up, but what these are that middle accordion piece in like a step ladder. I had a step ladder break a long time ago and I hoard stuff, so I kept these weird things, and I remembered I had them in a junk bucket, and so I abandoned the cable and I utilized these. But if you don't have something like this, you can buy the cables that are made for tailgates for trucks. So, which if these ever break, maybe I'll do something like that, because these are probably going to be hard to replace without getting a ladder and breaking it apart. So I was trying to get a welder to help me fabricate some stuff, and he strung me along for a few months, and then I had to ship the vehicle, so I just kind of had to figure out stuff without welding. So originally what I did is I have these, they're shelf brackets, and I just bolted them to the plywood, the bottom of the platform. And when I would press out here, it was creating so much leverage that the whole platform would kind of flex, because it's only, I think the bottom layer of the platform is 1/2 inch. So I just knew that wasn't gonna work. So what I ended up doing is I got another 2x2 and I ran it back maybe about 30 inches or so. And I just bolted it to the platform, and it created basically like a strip of wood that's real rigid. And now when I press down, it spreads the load over a much longer distance. And that seemed to, so far so good. And then the shelf bracket started bending, especially at the top here, because that's where originally I had an attachment for my little supports. And so what I did is I just got some galvanized angle iron and just bolted it to the back side of it, just to create more strength. And then I was worried about just having wood on my tailgate, because I just figured wood was gonna crack and stuff with all the weight. So what I did is I got that same angle iron. It's 1.5 by 1.5, and it goes down the whole length. It doesn't go around the back or anything, it's just on the side. And then I bolted the support arm, and I just bolted everything to it. So basically the only parts that have the angle iron are the edges and behind this bracket. And yeah, over here, same thing, have that 2x2 going all the way back. And I think that's about it as far as how I built this thing. I'm sure there's better ways to go about it, but so far so good. I'm super happy with it. And to be honest, I've never seen anyone build a tailgate in an SUV. So pretty stoked that it's so far so good. And if it ever breaks, I don't know how I'm gonna deal with it, because it's really built into the platform. This platform's never coming out. It's physically impossible without kind of destroying the whole thing. So I'm sure I'll figure something out if it ever comes to that, but hopefully not. And oh yeah, one other thing. Is the Sequoia has a huge center console, which is great. Like, it's got this little top one, but then down in here is like a cavern. They used to come with DVD players and stuff, but mine didn't. But it was just this huge cavern that was just a mess. So I got, this is like some plastic double-walled stuff my friend had laying around, and I just put it through his table saw. And then I just did kind of like, I don't know what they're called, maybe like scissor joints or something, where each one of these partitions cut halfway and they just slide together. And I love this, and it's one of the only places I still have empty storage. So that was something that I'm really happy every time I look in there. And yeah, I'll do one other shot. I'll build my bed and I'll put everything in before I'm ready to leave, and then I'll kind of give you how it actually looks as I'm about to roll with my bed made.